This is a presentation.
Good morning.
This board drives me out of my mind.
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning.
And welcome to This Week in Sports with Mac, Jack, and Jim Jeffcoat. And, the draft is over, guys. It's a long process, especially the first round. And, I don't care what anybody says. There's got to be a way to speed that up. I don't want to hear them, going over each pick and giving us their opinion ad nausea about overanalyzation of a pick. Let's go back to the days, and I know you guys remember this, when the draft pick, after you got picked, you had a little story about the player, right? I mean, you got to know the players a little bit. Now it's all about these four guys that sit on stage and they overanalyze everything. And I know ESPN does this now. They're the ones that carry it, and they want their stars to be up there front and center doing their thing. Let's make it more personable like it used to be. I used to like that anyway. I don't know about you guys. What do you think?
I agree with you 100%. I hate hearing Louis Riddick because most of the time he's wrong. And the best one is Ryan Clark to me. Yeah. Ryan Clark. But the other guys, I mean, just like you said, when has Mil Kiper ever been in a draft room? He's never been in the draft room. Let's be honest. And most of it's Todd McShay. He's never been in a draft room. He doesn't understand the process. Because I have been in a draft room. They have walls and they have people that they have. And as they get drafted, they take them off that wall and see who's left. And they look at what they're doing. And a lot of these guys are just going off of personal opinions. But if you're in a draft room, it's totally different because you might have had a tight end and you love the tight end, but he's gone. So you got to go to the next guy if you want a tight end. And it's at every position, or you're going to take the best player available.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what amazes me? How they can know so much about each player. And I'm being a little sarcastic here. Guys picked in the 6th round and they know him like a book, every tendency. Did Kiper McShay watch much film of that play? Did they watch a quick clip for 30 seconds on each player? A quick little clip. Based on that little clip, they know all about the guy's college career, his tendencies, his this, his that. Or they ask the college to send them something, and the college sends them something to the effect of wide receiver, explosive first step, not scared to cut over the middle. And they go with that.
No, he makes it. I mean, you're right. But here's the thing that shows you how much they know. Will Levis was one of the top 4 quarterbacks. He went 4th, obviously, and he went in the 2nd round. But all of a sudden, they know that there were flags after the fact. Now he's got this toe injury they were concerned about.
Right.
They never said anything about that up to the draft, but they said C.J. Stroud did something on this test, S2, and he was low on the test. They knew all this, but they didn't know that Will Levis had an injury.
Right.
Let me tell you something with Will Levis that kind of bothered me a little after the fact. It probably shouldn't. It doesn't reflect poorly on him, but it bothers me. Day 2 of the draft, one player went a little later than they thought he should have. I think it was Brian Branch from Alabama. Mm-hmm. He waited to come out to meet the commissioner because it meant a lot to him to have his name called. 2nd round. Nothing embarrassing about going in the 2nd round, even though it had to be disappointing to Will Levis. I would have liked to have seen him come out there day 2 with a smile on his face. I'm ready to get to work. I want to thank the team. Have an upbeat attitude.
He did say that. He
said it, but he wasn't there. He wasn't there for day 2.
If you remember correctly, when Lamar Jackson was supposed to be a 1st rounder, and he did stay, but you could see the disappointment. And he used that as something to inspire himself. Will Levis is going to have to do the same thing.
Yeah. Good morning, Keith. Keith from TGI
Good morning, Keith.
Sports
Hey,
Talk
Keith.
joins us every Saturday before he goes on with his show. Keith, we're talking about the draft, and before I get to the Patriots and the Knicks and all that good stuff, give me your opinion. I was saying, today's first round draft is just way too long. They overanalyze everything. The ESPN has its stars up there, front and center, giving us all this information. And as Jack and Jim pointed out, they really don't know. They don't know what's going on. They're just reacting to things that happen. And I used to like it when they used to have the personal stories about the draft picks, right? He comes from here. He had a rough upbringing. He made it out. I mean, that was enjoyable to me. I don't mind watching that. I don't want to see Riddick and these two other draft experts talking about a guy that they really don't even know about, Keith.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, there's too much. I mean, they just repeat themselves for 5 hours or however long it was on. It was just way too long. First of all, it doesn't need to go that long, but we all know why it does, because we got to sell stuff on TV, right? So I get that, but you can fill it up a little bit more entertaining stuff than what we're watching. And maybe once ESPN lays all these guys off here, and I'm sorry some of those guys are going to lose their jobs, but maybe they won't have as many people to talk for 5 hours, and we'll see more of that.
Unbelievable. Just listening to me is irritating.
Oh,
Can I say something, guys, that's irritating to me? I'm not saying Roger Goodell isn't a good, nice, compassionate man who's very happy for the guys getting drafted. I'm not saying that at all. But every guy who gets drafted, he's giving them the biggest hug as if he's family.
No,
okay, as if a family member got drafted. They're hugging one another.
You got to think about it. I agree, Jack, but they become part of the NFL family when they get drafted. So I don't have a problem with that. I mean, shoot, that's an exciting moment. Like you said, that is an incredibly exciting moment. And if the commissioner, he's probably going to find you at some point in your career. But
Jim, you were drafted in 1983. Where were you when you were drafted?
I was with friends. I was with friends in Arizona. It wasn't a big event like it is these days.
No, I was aware because I went to the 1986 draft in the hotel balcony. I was able to get a seat pretty easy. Yeah. It wasn't filled up. Yeah.
So good morning, Rick. The Vikings got a linebacker, Ivan Pace from Cincinnati, who went undrafted. I know you're excited about the Vikings.
Rick. There'll be a lot of that today. Yes.
Keith, let's get to the Patriots draft. What's your overall impression of how they did? They went defense first. Then they finally went offense, kind of give Mac Jones a little help there.
Yeah, I know a lot of fans wanted them to go wide receivers and tight ends early. And, it was pretty clear that the team and the coach didn't want to probably pay the premium they needed to pay to get these wide receivers in the first round, even the second round. And they also addressed a much needed area as well. They needed to get more athletic on defense, and they did that very well. They got Gonzalez following them at 17. I mean, he was definitely a lot of the analysts' top pick at cornerback. He was a top-rated cornerback for a lot of guys, and he fell to 17. That was an easy pick for them. In the second round, what did they get in the second round? I always forget this guy's name. Hold on a second. The defensive lineman they brought in. What the hell is his name? Bear with me a second. Oh, yeah. White from Georgia Tech. I was surprised, but he's the kind of guy that he likes. He's got versatility. He can play all along that line, and I think you'll see that. And then, obviously, the kid from Sacramento State. No surprise. Bill Belichick's got to throw one of these guys in that he's on nobody's radar. But Mapu is kind of like a Kyle Duggar type, where he may play safety. And not even linebackers. So he likes the athleticism. And then he got some value guys at wide receiver later on. I think a bigger surprise to me was the fact that for one of the few times I think in draft history, somebody picked a punter and a kicker in the same draft.
Yeah.
Now, and also positions of need, though, as well. They need these guys, too. So
Good morning. Good morning, Frank. And he says, and Jack. I guess Jack is not a gentleman, so
Well, Jack tells it like it is. Jack doesn't sugarcoat things the way you guys do.
But the theory always was in drafting, unless you have a unique player, the farther away from the ball they could play quicker. The cornerbacks, linebackers, outside linebackers, but the D line, it takes a little bit of a transition. That's not always, but a lot of your great players can walk in and play because they're better athletes than everybody. But the closer to your line, you have a transition. The farther, then you obviously go on athleticism. And the same on offense. The wide receivers can play earlier, running backs and things like that. But the line, it usually takes a little bit of a transition as you get onto the outside, the tackles, unless you're a phenomenal athlete.
Yeah, I mean, listen, with the wide receivers, they took two guys. They didn't take any until the 6th round, and the kid they took from LSU could end up being a steal or a big bust. This is a kid that could go either way. High risk.
They didn't expect him to come out.
No one's a bust in the 6th round. That's kind of late.
Well, I'm saying he's low risk, high reward here.
Exactly. He's right, though, Jack.
He was great in 2021. In 6 games, he scored like 9 touchdowns. He had a great sophomore year. Last year, he was not that good. He had problems with the coaches, and he had a lot of issues with the coaches.
And they thought he was going to transfer, off-field issues.
Yeah. Could you clarify one thing, if you can clarify it? During the first round of the draft, New England traded down. They traded with the Steelers. New England went 14th, one spot ahead of the Jets. There was one offensive lineman left that the Jets would have been interested in drafting in the first round. And they traded with Pittsburgh, who took that offensive lineman. And people feel Belichick kind of wanted to hurt the Jets a little. But day 2 of the draft, New England and the Jets traded with one another. So that would indicate it's all hype, that there really wasn't any devious plan of Belichick to get back at the Jets.
Well, I think realistically, obviously he's looking to help himself. He knows he didn't want to take somebody there. The guy that he wanted would have probably been there at 17.
Well, that was Gonzalez. But if they like Gonzalez that much, you said he fell into their lap. Yeah, why wouldn't they take him at 14? Why would they risk losing him and dealing with the Steelers? How did they know the Steelers weren't going to take him? Unless Mike Tomlin promised Belichick we're not going to take Gonzalez.
It's obviously Steelers were not going to take him. They were going to take Porter for their first back, and he wasn't going to go that early. So they knew there was no risk, and he got to tweak the Jets at the same time. I think there might be something to that. So
yeah. My theory on the whole thing is there were over 40, I think it was 41, 42 trades, which is the highest ever. Because I don't know if you agree with me, I don't think this draft was that good. I don't think you have surefire players at any position in this draft.
I think it was a deep draft for good players, but great players?
Great players.
Very short, yes.
I'll agree with that. Is there any pick that you didn't like, Keith?
For the Patriots?
Yes.
I like the kicker they picked. He was a second-ranked kicker overall behind Moody from Michigan, and he went second. He was a little high. I thought he might have been a reach in the 4th round, but if anything, that's going to be my gripe. I like the punter they picked. So I guess if I've got any gripe, do they need to go? I know they love the kid from Sacramento State, but do I need to pick him in the 3rd round? Again, this is a Belichick thing. You don't see anybody else picking guys from Sacramento State in the first 3, 4, or 4, 4th round. So that might have been a little bit of a reach. But overall, I'm very happy because I think they addressed the things they needed to, other than wide receiver and weapons for Mac Jones. But I think it also speaks. One thing that come out of the draft weekend, too, is Belichick now is trying to smoke the peace pipe with Mac Jones. He's come out and said a few more complimentary things about his quarterback after putting him through the ringer, pretty much the whole offseason. I think he's confident that Bill O'Brien just changing the system and getting – of course, Mac Jones has now got to learn a 3rd system in 3 years, which is never good. But he's confident Bill O'Brien will get that offense turned around.
But let me ask you this question, Keith. Is he really learning another system? Because where was Bill O'Brien at?
Yeah, but he didn't play for Bill O'Brien at Alabama.
Oh, he didn't?
No, they crossed paths on Mac
On the
Jones.
way out? Okay.
Yeah. So they had some interaction because actually Mac Jones was helping Bill O'Brien with some of the terminology within the offense. So, listen, Saban's got his own thoughts on offense too. I'm guessing you may be right. Some of that the theory on offense will carry over maybe to the Patriots with Bill O'Brien from his time in Alabama. So
Frank goes, I hope you're right, Jim, and I hope it applies especially to the Eagles. The Eagles had a dynamite draft, Frank.
They
really did. I can't argue. But the problem is still the same question. There was red flags on each of the high draft picks. There's some red flags on them. They're talented now. No question.
They've done okay with the red flag guys so far, though.
Yes,
so
yes, they have.
And the Eagles picked up DeAndre Swift from the Lions.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a massive pickup. I mean, how did they do that?
They're thinking the Lions, to me, I think had the worst draft of anybody.
Yeah, I think they had a bad draft.
They reach for the running back and then they trade their starting running back. I thought that was a little odd.
Now the Eagles, the Eagles have Swift and Eckler. I mean, I mean, what a duo that is. They got Eckler. The day of the draft, they picked up Eckler from San Diego, I want to say.
And they got a great running quarterback on top of it. They're going to be dangerous, and they have the elite receivers.
Did you notice that the NFC East was stacking up on defensive players?
Yes.
Did you notice that?
Yes.
All of them were stacking up on defensive players, and you might have a good point, especially in the running game.
And
they had a good two-headed running game last year, and I really thought they got hurt when Sanders left, and now they're better than they were he left. So
Douglas is something else.
He's done a great.
Yeah, he has. So Keith,
how about Howie Roseman? Douglas is
Roseman, sorry.
Yeah, he was the Eagle GM, but he's the Jets GM now. Jets didn't do too badly in the draft.
Not at all. So Knicks and Miami, Keith. Knicks won the first round. They're going up against the Miami Heat. I guess the Heat, if you can slow down, brain freeze, guy. Thank you, Jimmy Butler.
Yeah,
the Knicks have been successful with that, especially Josh Hart has been playing well this year. I think he's only got off 27% of his shots. Knicks got a great defense this year. They got a plenty of bench. I think the Knicks can beat the Miami Heat.
Yeah, I do too. 3-1 against them in a regular season, I believe, doesn't necessarily mean a lot going in, but psychologically it helps. I think the fact that they played so well with Randall either playing, 50% maybe or just a little more, and then hurt now. Yeah. Remember, they played the whole fourth quarter of Game 4 without him when he wasn't hurt. I think that gives them a lot of confidence. Obi Toppin's got a lot of confidence. He played really well in this series. I like the Knicks' chances here. And Jack, to answer, the question we had the other night about why they're playing the Heat, they don't reseed.
Yeah. I mean,
but I think the Knicks have the matchup advantages.
I do too.
Because Jimmy Butler's going to get his points. But I think everywhere else, if you look at it man to man, the Knicks have the advantage. And that's going to be interesting to see because now they got to ask, who is really going to guard Brunson? Lowry can't guard Brunson. There is no way.
I'm not sure who can guard him right now. He's playing tremendous.
And then you talked about Tobin. They got to worry about Tobin. Even without Randall, I think they might. This is a series that they really don't know. And then the one thing Miami doesn't have is a rim protector.
Yeah.
And that's going to be an advantage, too.
And another key that's gotten overlooked and a guy that I've given a hard time a lot, Robinson played really well in this series.
Really well.
Both ends of the court. He played the offensive end as well. And Hartenson's played his best basketball, I think, coming off the bench last month. So
Robinson left it all on the court. You'd see when he went to the bench, he was utterly exhausted.
Yeah, he did a great job. This whole team stepped up and played well. They played as a team. Every once in a while they fall into this one-on-one stuff, but everybody does, right?
But I wonder if Randall is hurt. I know Obi Toppin can step up, but can he provide the defense that Randall does?
Randall wasn't effective in defense. He wasn't even moving.
But he was adequate. But he's been adequate throughout the year, and that's been a knock on over.
But I'm just saying in the playoffs.
With him hurt,
100%.
when you factor in the injury, I'm not sure that the defense will be that much different with Topin on the field as Randall. I think what they'll miss. Sorry, Jim. I think what they'll miss is that Randall can still distribute the basketball too. He's very good at moving the basketball. That's one thing they'll miss a lot.
And also, nobody gives Eric Rosa the credit that he deserves, because what he's doing with Miami is pretty impressive.
You also wonder whether some of these veteran players who've been lying in wait can step up, like a Kevin Love for Miami.
Oh yeah, he's
can
played
really
well.
Step up and be kind of a little bit like the Kevin Love of old.
These guys are good enough; they can turn it on for short periods of time, even as they get up in age. And to Jim's point about Eric Spoelstra, I've said for a long time he's one of the most underrated coaches in the NBA. He's done a great job there. You think about when he came in there and took over Pat Riley, and he looked about this big.
Yes.
Let me tell you what we didn't mention on this show at all. Okay, since we're talking about coaches in the NBA, Nick Nurse, the Toronto Raptor coach, the former Toronto Raptor coach, he wins an NBA title, in 2019. The next year, 2020, he's voted Coach of the Year. Now he's out of a job. Because they were average. They made the play-in, got eliminated. They're not happy. I mean, talk about what have you done for me lately as far as coaching goes? I mean, it makes no sense to be that decorated a coach. If he had another name besides Nick Nurse, if his name was, let's say, Popovich, he'd still be the coach, Bev. If his name was Riley, he'd still be the coach. But these guys... You could win an NBA title, you better get a long-term contract immediately, because 1 year later you don't win, you're on the outs.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, Rick brings up the point they're better off without Randall Ball.
I don't agree.
I don't agree with that. But what I like about what's going on right now with Randall is that Tibbs isn't afraid to sit anybody down that's not playing well. And, I got to give Tibbs a lot of credit this year. He's handled the team really well this year, playing even players that he's sitting down aren't complaining. Rose isn't complaining. Randall got a little upset. But, hey, listen, if you're not playing well, you're going to sit down.
But Rose has always been a team player. Rose has never been an issue on the court.
And Rose has a relationship with Coach Tibbs that goes back a long way. Jim could vouch for this. The worst thing you can do to a player, the worst thing a player could feel is to be on the bench game after game after game. It drives you crazy. Look at Fournier on the Knicks. He hasn't played, in who knows how long, to not even get in at all. And you keep seeing this DNP, did not play on the box.
It depends on the play, because Keith, probably the player on the Miami Heat who's retiring this year.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but those guys are okay.
Yeah, but
the guy who lost the line,
they're going to do whatever it takes to win, because they still get the trophy.
But to me as a coach, and Matt could vouch for this, no matter what level you're coaching on, it could be high school on up, you want to give guys a little playing time when you can. Like, let's say you have a big lead, get them a few minutes.
They will, Jack.
But they do some coaches.
You think 28 cares about getting garbage minutes?
This is not participate. Everybody's got to participate. Winning championships.
That's what I was just going to say. I agree with Jack. If it's the regular season, you're now in the playoffs, and it's a different story, and you're going to play who's best at the right time. That's what you're going to do. But
you want to look to get a guy in Mac. Like, I'll give you an example. The famous 1980 USA Olympic winning hockey team, the backup goalie, Steve Janikowski, didn't get to play in the Olympics at all. You mean to tell me they couldn't put him in for a couple of minutes with a 5-goal lead just so he could say he played in it?
He's one of those guys that everybody needs to get
for that.
Listen,
how would you feel, Jim, if you were backup when your Cowboy teams? Did everyone get in the game at one point? In the Super Bowl game.
No.
No.
No. You mean to tell me with that big lead in the first
Not
Super Bowl
everybody
when you
got
blew
in.
out the Bills?
It's Jack, you still get the trophy. If
No,
you,
but it would be important
it's not that big of a deal. You know who the stars are.
Well, I mean,
Jim
I
watch
listen,
Rudy, and he'll see
Jack,
how
Jack, I understand what you're saying.
Tell Jim to
Uh,
watch Rudy.
I understand what you're saying. I mean, with the Lakers blowing away,
They put everybody in.
then you put everybody in.
But when we get to that, that's an interesting thing.
We're talking about guys getting paid millions of dollars. I'm sure every other Thursday, Fournier doesn't give a crap how long he plays.
I don't think he would be a professional NBA player, Keith, if he didn't care. I think
I get it.
He cares. He wants to play, but he understands the situation.
Got in at least a game if it's a Super Bowl, one play at least if you're reserved.
I understand what you're saying.
In the game.
I understand totally what you're saying, but it's
all right, Keith.
Let's
get to the Yankees real quick, even though I don't want to. The injuries it seems like every year now, pitchers, players. Judge decides to do a swan dive into third base. I mean, I get he wants to, he's playing to win, but they didn't need him to do that. I don't know what they're thinking with Schmidt still pitching. I mean, he gets killed every.
Somebody's.
I'll go down. I would bring anybody up besides Schmidt and pitch him. I wouldn't care, Keith, who it is. I put a position player. I'd let Torres pitch. Besides Schmidt, I wouldn't care.
Look at and I've been very hard on this team over the last few years. I'm not panicking for them to be 15-12, and you got 17 starts out of Clark, Brito, and who's the other guy I'm missing? There's another guy that's not one of their normal starting staff, and you got no starts out of Severino and Rondon. You're not. Plus, you're missing key parts of your bullpen. This team is okay. They're 15-12. It's April 30th.
Yeah,
the Rays aren't going to play this type of baseball all year long, and they'll be all right. Judge has got to be smarter, by the way, because one of the reasons he's been able to stay on the field the last 2 years is because he wasn't doing this stuff that put his body at risk. He's a big guy, and a lot of things can happen.
What, 6'7", 6'8"?
You gotta play hard. You can't.
I agree.
Slap off. You can't think, I'm not going to dive for ball. I'm not going to slide. I'm not going to run hard to a base. We're not going to guy for playing hard. Then he gets injured, and we're saying, "Oh, he shouldn't have done this." Mac didn't like the idea that he was hustling.
It is not hard.
He agreed with you, Jack.
That's okay, Jim. He doesn't listen when he gets ranted.
Playing smart, and he's playing hard. Nobody's saying he doesn't play hard when he protects his body a little more than he did in the past.
Well, I think a lot has to do with the young youth movement there. He's excited. They're excited. He wants to be the leader out there. He doesn't want everybody, if you're going to lead somebody, you can't loaf it going around second base.
He'll be
100%.
Guys, that movie Major League, remember that character, the third baseman, Vaughn? The manager got mad at him because he wouldn't dive for a ball. He says, I go free agent next year. I'm not putting myself at risk. So you get mad at him if he does
Judge
that.
already has his contract, Jack.
Mad.
That's right. Judge has his contract. That's true.
Yeah. Well, anyway. Keith, so you're satisfied with the Patriots draft? Belichick is now back in your good graces, I guess. He's
making his way. He's making his way there.
Jack wants to know. Jack wants to know who's taking over the clipboard responsibilities this year.
Right now, it'll be McSorley, and we don't have anybody to coach him up on that. So he's going to have to learn it on his own. But it's okay. I think
he takes over for Hoyer, a younger Hoyer. I'm glad to see that.
That's a fun list. The best clipboard carriers in the NFL, meaning the guys who are realistically not going to play, and Brian Hoyer is one of them.
Yes, he is. So,
according to your theory, he should be playing. Get a snap every game.
Well, he was a starter for Cleveland over Johnny Manziel.
Well, he got the participation trophy.
He should.
Yeah.
Like Rick said.
So Robert's here, which means Keith's going to leave.
Hey,
As you
Keith.
see,
Hey, thanks, Keith.
on our show anyway, the feud is still going on. I know they're friends off our show, so
No,
The feud is on.
I'll see you around.
Have a good day, Keith.
See you, Keith.
all right, so
Have a great Sunday. Bye-bye.
have a good one, Keith. Thanks for coming on. Buddy. Robert Butler from Sports Skope he's going to update us on his thoughts on the draft, the biggest stories. We discussed something, me, Jack, and Doc, believe it or not, about the draft, right? I mean, the teams made, their first round draft picks were made, but we're not counting the signing of Aaron Rodgers and Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you could consider them first round draft picks. And I think even at their age, you would take them before you take any other quarterback in the draft. Right?
Because they're proven commodities. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, I mean, you could consider them first round draft picks for Baltimore and for Green Bay. So, with all the talk of what the Jets gave up for Rodgers, if you consider him a first round draft pick, maybe the Jets got the better end of the deal, Robert.
Yeah, I mean, I think if he plays 2 years. Now, I don't like what the Jets did with allocating so much money to the backside of it. I actually like the way it was as far as when they first signed Rodgers. It was a $15 million cap hit. Now it's a $1 million cap hit. And next year it's a $37 million. That's not the end of the world for $37 million, but you're pushing all that dead money back. And I don't think they needed to do that because they didn't. Maybe they go after DeAndre Hopkins or something. I don't know what the thinking behind that was. But other than that, yeah, I think it was a pretty good move by the Jets.
Yeah. The Titans draft. I mean, you got Levitz to be the heir apparent, I guess, to Tannehill. How did you like their draft this year, Robert?
Oh man, I did not think that Sonorski would be there at 11. I was for sure he was going to go to Chicago, and Chicago took the University of Tennessee, Darrell Wright. Some say Wright's a right tackle, but Sonorski from Northwestern, you could move this guy up and down the line. His grandfather played for the Steelers or something like that. He had a high grade early on, so I was really ecstatic about that. This running back they got out of Tulane, he had 200 yards against USC in the bowl game, 4 touchdowns. Very small guy, kind of like your guy from Dallas, Jim.
Yes, Deuce Vaughn.
Love him too, Vaughn. So, yeah, Tennessee had a really good draft, and they didn't mortgage the farm to get Will Levis. I mean, if they would have did that in the first round, I wouldn't have been sold because he's not a Joe Burrow talent.
Robert, let me ask you a question. What do you think Malik Willis's future is now that they got Will Levis in the second round, which they got Willis in the
Third round.
Third round. So,
yeah.
What do you think his future is?
It just depends on how good is his camp. Does he get traded? Do they keep him because he's a low cap hit? That remains to be seen. Kind of like Trey Lance in San Francisco, they're not really sure. He's a good maybe you keep him for packages. Maybe another quarterback gets hurt and someone takes a chance on him in training camp, something like that. I haven't read anything immediate, but the guy was super raw. And like I was telling you guys before, that locker room, they see everything that we don't see. And maybe they're saying that he's not putting in the kind of work.
That's what I'm thinking.
To make up the difference.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of unusual to draft a quarterback in the third round and then go back the next year and draft the second one.
Right. Well, they still got Tannehill for one more contract.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. One more year.
Malik Willis has no future as the Tennessee Titan quarterback, but he has no value to trade. What are they going to do? Trade him for a 6th round draft choice? At best, they're going to get that.
He has a future, Jack.
Quarterback.
He got the XFL and the USFL.
Yeah.
No, but you know what it is? They have Malik Willis. At least has been there 1 year. In the event both quarterbacks go down, Tannehill and Levis.
Yeah, but they're going to have a new
They have a guy
offensive
with some familiarity, with the system. So you basically keep him And what is Malik Willis? What's his attitude from his end? He's in nowhere's land. He's the third string quarterback of that team.
You think. You don't know. You really can't say that because we don't
He
know.
has a great training camp, and Tannehill gets hurt early on. Maybe Malik Willis does get the opportunity, and you never know what could happen.
Well,
That's
we
the
didn't
attitude
think
that
about
has
this
to happen.
either. Was it Josh Dobbs who came in from Tennessee?
And they started him ahead of Willis in the big
Right.
game.
And
with
then for a touch. Yeah. I was
I
hoping
didn't-
they was going to maybe take a chance on Dobbs and give him a modest contract, but not so much. I think he went up going to Cleveland.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he
Going
went
back
back there again to back up Deshaun Watson. That's a
Deshaun
good
Watson.
spot for him because Dobbs isn't an NFL caliber starter, but he could play well on a given day. So that's a good spot for him in Cleveland.
Now
Right.
they had mentioned. I looked it up. Austin Eckler didn't go to the Eagles, did he, Robert?
Yes.
Yeah.
Austin Eckler?
Yeah.
Yep.
I
Really?
looked it up.
No,
He didn't.
DeAndre Swift got traded.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
No, I
looked
thought
it up.
Eckler went from what I
No,
understood.
he did not. I was looking.
Eckler's
He-
still with
I
the
think I was
Chargers.
listening. Mac
All
wrote
right.
that
We're
story.
gonna- we're
You
gonna-
cannot believe
we're
Mac.
gonna read-
I believe what Max said. I took it as a bond what Max said.
We're
this
checking
time.
it. We're
I
rechecking.
got
We're
burned.
rechecking.
Finally, I'm listening to Mac and I get
I'm
burned.
like, what? And
We're
Jack was
rechecking
agreeing
it.
with him. I
We're
just
rechecking.
Check into this rabbit Butler.
We're
now.
rechecking it. Right. We're rechecking it.
Robert.
Right.
Hey, Robert tells it. Hey, we'll listen to Robert.
Yeah,
Wait
he's
a
with
second.
he's
And
with the
Pax
Jets, Jack.
was
No,
all
I'm kidding.
smiling. Pax said he hadn't heard about it, and he bought
Right.
into it too yesterday.
We're rechecking it right
Oh
now.
man.
Yeah.
Find out.
No, he
Robert,
didn't get traded, guys.
Robert,
Austin Eckler traded to Eagles
okay,
days ago.
2
Yeah.
days of rumors.
He is rumored.
Oh,
He did
rumor.
that.
Rumors. There you go.
There's a rumor I'm gonna hit the Powerball. But
There you go. So it's a rumor. Now we got it straight. Now we
There's
got
a
it.
rumor that I'm
Wait
going
a
to get
minute.
South
The Eagles
to
is-
the Jets. It's not happening.
Right. So Robert, what didn't you like about what draft picks didn't you like that the Titans made?
did not like
Or-
or did.
Did not like.
Well, look at Minnesota, guys. I mean, you're 31st in total defense. You've got the best receiver in the league in Jefferson. And then you go out and draft Addison. He's a great player, but they need their defense was so bad last year. 31st
He's
in total
undersized
defense.
too.
Yeah, and they got Addison. I mean, I like Jordan Addison, but that's just I was thinking maybe they're going to trade, Jefferson for a haul and maybe work out something that way. And now they just, let's just stick with this bad defense. And then same with Detroit. Now, I understand Swift had injury problems, but Gibbs was a bit of a reach there at 12. And then they get a linebacker. They needed defensive line interior guys like nobody's business. Now, I like Hutchinson, but that's about it, And
How about the
we'll
how
see
about
what happens.
How about the Titans? Any picks that you didn't like the Titans made?
The Titans, I mean, not really. I mean, it's hard to tell once you're getting down in the 6th, 7th round pick. Should have took a receiver later, but they got this 7th round guy out of Tennessee, Martin, that had a great game against University of Tennessee. And, essentially teams think that's kind of hey, it's a feel-good story. He's a local guy. But this guy ran a 4.4. He's 6'3", athletic body. His last name is Dalton, University, UT Martin. And a lot of times those guys end up being gems. And people don't really think that so the criticism from the outside is going to be receiver, lack thereof it. But that's not on my part. So I actually like the draft. I mean, I don't know about Levis, but he's a big question mark. I'm not ready to say he's a major bust, not unless they did that in the first round.
I just want to say something about the Vikings. We're just talking about their defense, them having, difficulty on defense last season. But there's an X factor this year. Brian Flores is their new defensive coordinator. And I'm sure Brian Flores is has watched a lot of game tape. And it's, certain schemes were set up. He feels he could do this and that with the players they have. I'm sure he expressed that and that played a role in the way they drafted.
Jack, I'm not questioning Flores's ability to get into play, but it's still about having the players.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's how the players are used. If the players are used
to
wrongly,
a point, but
you're
you
not
better have
bearing on it.
you better have some studs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You better have some studs.
I agree.
That's
with
just
that.
the reality of it.
I mean, there's only so much you can do as a coach. I mean, you could scheme, you could do a lot of stuff, and you might be able to hide some things, but overall, there's you've got to have the players that can play football, of course. Robert, now the different teams that drafted, you'd have to say, Houston jumped out fast, but you'd have to say that Eagles had the best draft easily of any team in the league.
Possible. Steelers had a really good draft, I thought, with getting Joey Porter, Broderick Jones at left tackle, Darnell Washington at tight end to put him up with fire move. I mean, the Steelers, man, God, what a tough division. Yeah, the Eagles, that front seven. Now, here's my thing, and that's something I may ask Jamie on my program later. Rashawn Penny and DeAndre Swift, who was traded from Detroit, both of those guys have injury histories. Are you going to put that much faith in Gonwell and Boston Scott to be your potential backup running backs there? Because those guys do have an injury history. That's my only knock on the Eagles. Other than that, anybody, I don't think, say, for instance, Jalen Carter's a total bust. The Eagles are so stacked. I don't think the fan base is going to go crazy if he's suspended for something, something egregious happening during the season. Now, if they were in a situation where about 3-4 years ago, where they had that 6th pick and they felt like they had a lot of holes to fill, and then he was a bust. So it just feels like a win-win for it feels like a very low risk, high reward.
Rob, why are the Eagles targeting Georgia Bulldog players the last couple of years? I mean, they really put a lot of emphasis on Georgia.
Man, well, back-to-back national championships. When that team when they're tuned in, they totally dominate their opponent, man. Just watch a lot of their games. They kind of remind me of that Hurricane team from 2001, 2002, where you just had a flood of fast, talented defensive players. And, hey, they gave up 38 points in the Super Bowl. And I'm sure that really gnawed on the ownership and Howie Roseman and said, hey, we got to get better,
Yeah, I agree with that. Anything about the NBA? I mean, your thoughts on the conference finals in the East?
In the East, I mean, I think Miami's going to come in there limping. And what a classic, guys. This feels like 1995 all over again. I love this. I'm looking forward to this. I've been looking forward to it for about 2 or 3 days now. I can't wait to see this. Randall's injury, I don't know how much that's even going to affect the Knicks with their depth. So, yeah, I definitely I like the Knicks in 6 there. They definitely match up well, but Miami, they're very well coached and have unsung heroes.
Robert, what direction does Memphis go now? Brooks is opened up a can
free agent.
Yeah.
I was hearing from a guy, Rick Bucher from Fox Sports, said this. I noticed this beforehand, that maybe Taylor Jenkins runs a loose ship up there. That's the head coach. Memphis has got a lot of talent. Maybe they have to do what Golden State done for a different reason, or maybe what Atlanta done and bring more of a disciplinarian type of coach in there, other than a Taylor Jenkins, because I feel like the talent's there. Now they had some injuries. Now they had 2 bigs out. They had Clark and Adams out too, but the other big one, defensive player of the year. Somebody's got to reel in.
Obviously the Grizzlies are better off with Jay Morant, but notice when he's out, they're just as good as when he's in the lineup. And for a so-called superstar of a team, that's rarely the case.
Yeah, I think he's got to evolve his game and stop doing these high flying act and those
They are
crazy.
high-flying.
Those circus plays are going to catch up with him. Matt
Eventually.
Barnes says the ground wins 100% of the time, man. You got to quit
That's the
doing
truth.
that.
They tried to make some trades too to get Brooks out of there. They tried.
You know
to get,
what? A guy like Draymond Green would fit in there.
You think so?
Yeah.
Now, Draymond Green hates
he
the
got anything
Grizzlies.
left?
Well, he would be a leadership guy in a sense. It could bring him off the bench. He's 34, maybe for 2 years. You need some older guys in there to kind of reel some of the younger players in.
Yeah.
Did you guys see it courtside before the Laker Grizzly game, the last one? Kyrie Irving in the first row.
Yeah,
LeBron comes over the way they
won championship together.
LeBron's a smart guy. He knows Kyrie's going to be a free agent, and maybe Kyrie will give up a little bit of money, or whatever. Dallas might not give him the max anyway, and it's sending a message. Come here next year, play for the Lakers, because they've won together before.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, Kyrie. They got a nice little balance there. If it's Golden State, the Lakers will match up pretty well against them. But history says the Kings will win today, 78%.
And how do they match up with the Kings?
Yeah.
That's the question you got to ask the Lakers. How does the Lakers match up? I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah. Well,
guys.
Go ahead.
You got Denver, who just took apart Phoenix yesterday.
Yeah.
Me and Jim have been talking about Denver for the last couple of weeks here, and they got no respect. They got no respect coming into the number one seed. Everybody was saying, all the stars on the other team.
Run them out of the gym.
Yeah. So
Rodney Dangerfield, guys of this year's playoffs.
But I kind of like to be. Everybody's talking about.
Yeah.
Phoenix and let them talk about it and just go on and do. If they win next game, they still get home court advantage.
Yep.
I kind of feel, guys, it's more important to the Denver franchise to win that series, because if Phoenix loses, they got Durant this year. They could reset for next year and be the favorites to win it, and their fan base is going to be excited. Durant's starting a whole new year with them, but Denver every year ends in disappointment.
Yeah, but I was talking to a friend of mine. He makes a good point. The problem with NBA basketball players, sometimes their legs go, and that's really a disadvantage because they're running. So Steph Curry is unusual, LeBron's unusual, but whatever happens if Durant's legs go next year, because that hurts them. You think because the movements,
40
I don't know.
minutes.
You got to do it now.
Yeah. 45, 48 minutes a game. You got 37 to 39 minutes for Chris Paul. Paul's 37 years old. Durant's 34.
Right. Yeah.
Denver's they've went multiple rounds before when they've been fully healthy. So it's not like they're a young team. This is not their first rodeo.
Yeah. And Murray hasn't been healthy since the 2020 season.
Right.
Mac and myself have talked about this before, and we laugh about the modern day players. Wilt Chamberlain only missed 13 minutes the whole season. Now, you could say in the old days, but the bottom line, he was going up and down the court constantly a whole season. And those minutes missed were basically in overtime games, some of them. But just the idea, the old-time players up and down the court, no hamstring pulls. I mean, I don't know what's went wrong in the modern era.
It's in every sport, Jack. It's in every sport.
Robert, Boston versus Philadelphia looks like Embiid will at least be out for game one. Boston needs an advantage there. I still think Boston's the best team in the East. Who knows? Maybe they end up playing the Knicks, and the Knicks have played well against them. But I think when it comes to the division championship, I think Boston still wins that.
Yeah, Boston looks like they got it seems like they got a very young coach, 34-year-old Joe Mazzulla.
Yes,
that's young, man. They were looking ahead in the Atlanta series. Atlanta got hot. Atlanta's like the NCAA team that got hot at the last minute. Go ahead.
Let me ask you this, Robert. Do you feel that Boston is like the 49ers in their front office? By that I mean is how they structured and how they acquire players that fit their scheme.
Yeah. Look at Malcolm Brogdon, brought in a sixth man of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Look at last year; they got Derek White.
Yep.
He fit perfectly. Boston, if you keep Robert Williams healthy, I don't see why they're not the favorite, Mac. Like you
I
said,
think they are, aren't they?
yeah. Well, people question after they lost that other game, and you got a young coach, substitution issues.
Is it a red flag that they struggled with Atlanta? They ultimately won in 6 games. Is that a red flag that Boston can be had?
Well, you just, when you have a coach like that, now it's not unheard of. We've had interim coaches. When Cleveland in 2016, the interim coach won.
Yep.
And 1980, the Lakers had an interim coach and they won with Magic. So I think that substitution thing, and maybe the West, you just never know. But some people are saying it is, but I don't think so. I think they were just looking ahead.
Yeah,
and maybe they're too much of a jump shooting team. I mean, if you nitpick them, you could find something with them.
Of course. The draft's over, so now the Giants start their talks again with Saquon Barkley.
Yes.
They're supposed to be, offering him a multi-million-year contract. Do you think it has anything to do with the Giants picking up that running back from Oklahoma that might have forced or made at least Barkley think that the Giants were ready to push on, and that's why he went to the table?
Yeah, it's a possibility. Words are now, I was reading, it's 25 a year, fully guaranteed. No, I'm kidding, man.
No, not 25.
I was going to say, wow.
Oh my goodness.
Robert, rumor has
I get back upset.
Rumor has it looking at Austin Eckler.
They're not.
Robert, rumors have it. Good.
I'm kidding. No, you're probably right there. And I think if you anywhere from 12 to 14 with incentives is more than fair for him. If he wants what Christian McCaffrey got, that didn't work out for Carolina, you know? And the 49ers are very fortunate. They've got a quarterback on a rookie contract. Remember, Garoppolo's money's done. That money's off their contract. They don't have any big money quarterback contracts, so they can afford that. But you guys just paid Daniel Jones, and you got some defensive guys coming up. So he's got to do the math there.
Well, when you say it didn't work out with Christian McCaffrey because he was injured a lot,
yes,
but he's with the 49ers and they're relying very heavily on him if they're going to make a Super Bowl run. But Saquon Barkley, he has no leverage.
No.
When push comes to shove, he has no leverage at all in this contract, and he's got to report to camp.
Why do you say that, Jack? Why do you say he doesn't
What
have
is he going to do? What's his leverage?
His leverage is he was the best player on the team.
No, but for this season,
For
he's
them to
got to
win.
play under the franchise tag. He's got no choice. The Giants can make him perform for the season, and then they can revisit the contract at the end of the year.
If the Giants want to win, they better have Barkley.
And I don't think
they want a happy player. And
right, I don't think they want to pick him up.
Knowing his personality, guys.
Go ahead, Matt.
Is he going to dog it at all? Not buy in 100%.
No, that's not Saquon Barkley.
Right,
they don't want
exactly.
They don't want to tick off Saquon Barkley. I know they don't. I think they've just got to come to some kind of understanding. It's going to happen. I mean, fourth leading rusher last year, scored 10 touchdowns, tied for receptions with the leading receiver on the team. He's a weapon. This guy is a weapon.
Saying.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. You don't want to get in a situation with that Lamar Jackson. You don't want to get in that type of situation because you got Saquon is a talent. Let's be honest. And he does play hard and he makes plays. Yep. So I don't know how you reward him because he's a running back, but you got to reward him some way. You don't want him to play on the franchise tag and be PO'd.
You could reward him as you reward a wide receiver, Jim, right?
I'm going to tell you, society is messed up. A franchise tag should be considered a compliment. That I'm the one guy they're franchise tagging. They think so highly of me, but it's not looked at that way.
I agree. Well, it is messed up, but it's a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
And the reason is because you don't get that security, right? If you get injured, that what are you going to do the following year? Who's going to pick you up?
I want to say that. What are you going to do the following year, Mac? What he's getting for the 1 year? Hypothetically,
Yeah, but isn't it?
Again, he has enough to live off and be secure.
Yeah, but Jack and Robert are correct. Us with the franchise tax from running backs is what, 10.5?
Yeah, it usually counts more towards the cap, so it would make sense for the Giants to extend him.
Mm-hmm.
All that guaranteed money is a straight cap hit for the Giants.
Yeah.
So they want to get that number down, even if it is just a 3-year with maybe a 4th-year option, just to get that number down. And, Daniel Jones is just not all world, I don't think. And you have to have better talented players around the guy that's not as talented.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Everybody
was shocked with Daniel Jones' contract, but right now it looks like a deal right now, Robert.
You're right.
It's a decent deal, but it's
No, Mac, I still can't buy
it's not an Aaron Rodgers.
I don't know how we.
No, it's not a Lamar Jackson deal.
Lamar Jackson's clearly better than Daniel Jones.
It's not a Jalen Hurts deal. It's none of them deals.
Yeah, but Lamar Jackson hasn't won a championship, and I agree with that. But he has won 2 MVPs.
One MVP.
That's one MVP. Yeah. But he has won an MVP. And the same with Aaron Rodgers. He won 1 Super Bowl, but he's won multiple MVPs.
Yeah.
So,
I
don't like that, but that's just the reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Robert. Do you have any other big news for us?
Any other big news? Well, saved a lot of money on my car insurance this past. No,
Robert's becoming quite the comedian. Huh?
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh man.
Yeah. I'll say this about the Jets. It's got to be at least playoffs, at least 1 win for this to really consider to be. I don't know about Super Bowl, but they've got some talent, and apparently they like Corey Davis, guys, because he was a big cap hit for them. I thought they may have moved off him, so maybe they're sliding him as a 3rd receiver or something like that. The Jets, remember, they got Allen Lazard, so that's going to be an interesting team to follow, especially with Rodgers. I think probably the most interesting in the league, if you ask me.
Probably. They got problems. They play the NFC East, the Beast.
Oh, yeah.
No, wait. Aaron Rodgers loves Randall Cobb. They just didn't get him yet.
That is true.
Oh, God.
Yeah, and they could get him.
Right, though.
You would think they could get him cheap, and that would have been included in the deal with the Jets. Okay, we're going to make the deal draft choices. Just give us him. Aaron Rodgers guy for years.
How many receivers do the Jets need now? And stop. You got Rodgers. Stop.
Aaron Rodgers wants his boys with him.
Stop trying to please Rodgers. He's making $60 million a year now.
And Mac,
did you see what Joe Namath said? Aaron Rodgers is a wonderful human being. They were getting personal there.
Joe Namath is smoking weed still, I think. Robert, what do you?
I think the Giants got a steal, Mac, with Jalen Hyatt. He was great with Tennessee last year. He reminds me of Mike Evans. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think they had a good draft.
I could have sworn Jordan Addison was going to the Giants. I mean, he would have been such a fit, and then the Vikings got him right before. So.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah, when they couldn't stop a nosebleed last year.
Yes, they could. That's the truth.
Oh my goodness.
That's the truth. So
I love this.
Robert, love having you on every Sunday, and now that you bring a comedy into the show too, you're even more valuable. So everybody tune into Sports Skope. He's everywhere, Twitter, Facebook. He's just everywhere. Just look up Sports Skope.
Instagram.
Yes, you'll see Robert Butler
with the
there.
K. Yeah, I'm still learning Instagram though. It's different.
Yeah, and he still has a sports tracker van that he's driving around, giving you updates. So check him out.
Well, it's in the shop right now. He's waiting till the season starts.
I'm still using the car. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So he's using the car now. But that's dedication. All right, Robert. Have a great one.
Thanks, guys. Have a good show.
All right, Robert. Have a good day.
Okay, folks, that's it for our first hour. We're going to take a quick promotion break. We'll be back on the other side, and we'll discuss, we will discuss our team's drafts and what we think of how they were. So, messages.
He was a giant, and he was a cowboy. Now these two former rivals have joined forces to bring you the most insightful, perceptive, and controversial sports talk podcast in America. Former Dallas Cowboys defensive end Jim Jeffcoat locks horns with former New York Giants wide receiver Byron Williams. And now, here's Byron Williams and Jim Jeffcoat. If you like the sweet science, get ready to talk boxing on the Gloved Fist podcast with top boxing writers Frank Latirzo and Jack Hirsch. Frank, a former amateur boxer out of Philadelphia, writes for NY Fights and can be seen on the Boxing Channel. Jack, an amateur boxer who competed in the New York Golden Gloves, was a 6-term president of the Boxing Writers Association. And now, here's Frank Latirzo and Jack Hirsch. It just might be the greatest sports franchise in the history of sports. A place where legends are made, and there's always something to talk about. Get ready to immerse yourself in pinstripes. Start spreading the news, hosted by Paul Semendinger and E.J. Fagan, a couple of doctors with a prescription for Yankee fever. And now, here's Dr. Paul Semendinger and Dr. E.J. Fagan. Get ready to start spreading the news.
See right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, isn't he?
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to This Week Sports with Mac, Jack, and Jim Jeffcoat. Jack stepped out for a second. We'll bring him right back on when he gets back. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, 2-time Super Bowl champion, Dallas defensive end legend, Jim Jeffcoat. And Jim, we just had Keith in to give us, the Knicks and the Patriots draft, and Robert comes in with the big stories. I think right now, as we're together, we can start getting into, our draft and what we thought. Dallas Cowboys, a lot of people thought they were reaching in the beginning. They had a problem with it. But I think Dallas had a good draft, Jim. What do you think?
I think it was I would give him a B on it. But the kid they got, Machi Smith from Michigan, he's 6'3", he's 323. They needed a run player because that's where they struggled at in the interior line. And this guy could do that. He was one of the they said he was an athletic freak. He did the most bench press. He could run. He could jump. The only thing that concerns me is, and this is just knowing the Dallas Cowboys have always struggled with players from Michigan. I don't know why that is. Then they haven't really produced really well for the Cowboys, but I think this kid might change that. I like him. I like and I watched him yesterday, and he is a little tank. Yeah. Now people are comparing him to Dontarius Poe.
Okay. So you had Lakers Shoemaker, and I'll tell you a quick story about
Shoemaker. Now he said the interesting thing is I think they wanted one of those other tight ends, but they were gone. And he's had 2 shoulder surgeries.
Right. Let me tell you a quick story, funny story, Jim. When I was at the Ramada Inn as a dishwasher, we had this Korean guy that used to be, he was also a dishwasher, and he moved up, became an incredible chef and everything. But my father used to call him a shoemaker. And I guess that's funny in Korea. You call somebody a shoemaker. I don't know. I just when I saw that, it struck me. But it looks like they're getting him for tight end depth is what it looks like, Jim.
I would agree. And it seems like he's a really good blocker. And he's 6'5", 251. So, I mean, he is a big guy. And I think you're right. I think they're getting it for the depth. And they're going to use probably multiple tight ends. But they've been looking at a lot of receivers, too. Yeah. I think the best player that they drafted, honestly, is the Overshawn kid in the third round. This kid can play. This kid has been a superstar since high school. I mean, this kid is from East Texas, little town in East Texas, and he was unbelievable as a high school player. And he played well in there. He can play special teams, which will help him.
Right.
He'll end up being there probably one of their outside linebackers at some point.
Yeah, that's important. If you can play special teams in the NFL, it gets you closer to being on the roster. That's for sure.
In their fourth round trip, Viejo from San Jose State, in the last 2 years, he's had 23 sacks. He's an interesting looking guy. He's not what you would expect as a pass rusher, but I think eventually he's going to end up being an interior pass rusher as opposed to an edge pass rusher.
Right. And you got Azim Richards, offensive tackle from North.
Yeah, he's another one. He started 3 years at left tackle, but he's also played guard.
Right.
And I think they're looking at him as a guard.
Okay. And I don't have round 6 and 7. It became
round 6 and 7 is they took 2 in the Eric Scott, a cornerback from Southern Miss, and then they took Deuce Vaughn from Kansas State. Vaughn's father, as we all know and we've mentioned before, is a scout for the Cowboys. Vaughn was a very good player in college. He's only 5'5", 179 pounds, and he's put together. He's a little bowling ball, you know what I mean, in there. And then the last player they took was Jalen Brooks from South Carolina, who's a wide receiver. But I don't know that much about Scott. But he did. South Carolina was pretty good on defense last year, so we'll see. And that's when it gets after that 5th round, and Jack had mentioned this earlier, it gets a little bit shaky on if these guys may be practice squad. They might play in these other leagues that are developed. So,
yeah, and I mean, Jim, they go even after all this is done, then they let people go on the wire. They pick up players from other teams. They might go back and grab their own guy off the. I mean, it's got to be exhausting for them too. I'm talking about me. That's got to be exhausting. Yeah. So, Jack, we're gonna get to your picks now. And the first pick shocked a lot of people. You went and you got a linebacker, and there were 4 All-American offensive tackles there to be had. So that kind of
they weren't to be had anymore because they were taken, and I'm sure the Jets would have taken one of them. That was the plan, and that's what we've discussed in the past.
Right.
You draft according to need or the best player available. And when the Jets finally were going at number 15, Will McDonald, they determined, an edge rusher was the best player available to take. And that's who they took. I mean, should they have forced the issue and looked for another offensive lineman who wasn't rated nearly as high?
Or moved up, Jack, right? Or they could have moved up.
Well, they got kind of ambushed. That Green Bay trade actually maybe will wind up being a blessing in disguise if Will McDonald turns out to be a great player for them. You never know how it's going to turn out. But they were supposed to go number 13, and instead they flip-flop with Green Bay in the Rodgers trade. They went number 15. Right. And New England traded with Pittsburgh so they could move up to 14, and that was the last offensive lineman that on the board who they were interested in. So they take Will McDonald. But like we said, it could be a blessing in disguise. What happens if Will McDonald's outstanding? Now, people knock the pick because they say, why would you want to add someone else in already very strong defensive unit? You have edge rushers as is. But I'm a big believer, every position outside a quarterback, you want to draft the best player available. This is just me. I give the example of a couple of years ago, the Bengals desperately needed an offensive lineman, and Penny Sewell was available from Oregon. But they went with Jamar Chase, and people saying they're crazy. Why are they taking a receiver? But they took Burrow's college teammate, and look at the way it worked out, how much better off they were. Yeah. And I think the Jets kind of were in a spot here. They went with the best play in the first round, but they kind of addressed the issue in the second round with Joe Pittman. He's probably going to play center. Can you imagine that, a rookie coming up and you got to snap the ball to Aaron Rodgers? Talk about intimidation. Like, you're a kid and you grew up since you were, barely able to walk following this guy. Yeah, and now, you're with the great Aaron Rodgers there.
He's a big boy. He's 6'6" and 313 pounds. That's a big
guy. I don't think that affects him. I think he's going to be more worried about making sure because he makes the line checks most of the time. The center makes the line. Right. And I'm sure, I know Tittman, he never obviously hiked, but he is from, he was at Wisconsin, so he's heard of Aaron Rodgers.
And he plays guard too. He does play guard.
And I think you're right. He's going to probably be a center, but yeah. On back to Will McDonald, you can never have enough edge rushers.
Yeah.
Edge rushers, because they wear down. And the more you have, the more you can rotate. I think he'll be a rotational guy.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's what Robert Saleh, that's his thing, defense, coming as a defensive coordinator from the 49ers. One thing Saleh's done, he's done a wonderful job on the defensive side of the ball, his specialty. It's, on offense. And, they just went with, in the fourth round with a tackle, Carter Warren. I would have liked to see them address their running back needs a little more, because Breece Hall is coming back from the injury. He was outstanding before I got hurt. Michael Carter, after a decent rookie year, I was never that crazy about him. He kind of performed like a fourth-round draft choice in the second year after, overachieving. But, they drafted Israel Abanaconda. How do you pronounce his name?
I'm glad you said it. I didn't want to say that name.
Yeah, from Pittsburgh. 2 draft choices in a row from Pittsburgh, Warren and Abanaconda.
He's got good size. He's 5'10", 216.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing I don't understand about the NFL, the attitude. If DeAndre Swift could be had for lower round draft choice by the Eagles, why didn't the Jets give a 4th and a 5th this year and give a 4th round pick next year to get DeAndre Swift? I mean, they're the better backs in the NFL when healthy.
You just said the thing. The Eagles got 2 backs, Rashad Penny, who is exceptional. He's a very good back, and Swift. Swift is a Philadelphia kid. He went to St. Joseph High School in Philadelphia. But you said the key word, when healthy. And that's the thing. Are these guys, is there something going on? When somebody trades a talent like there's a red flag. And that's what I think. And I'm not saying that Swift, he might go out and lead the league in rushing.
It could be attitude too, Jim. He may just be a
that's
problem.
what I'm saying. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to be careful about your locker room, because you get a couple of locker room lawyers that could destroy your locker room.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, even established players. I remember Randy Moss when he had his second go around with the Vikings. It didn't last long. After the first game, he's calling all the players together, and I'm thinking, why are you acting like you're the leader here? You just got to the team. Don't act like you're the leader, like you're taking over. I can understand in the case of an Aaron Rodgers, you got to act like the leader. Absolutely. And they want you to be the leader, all the other players. But if you're a position player, like these locker room lawyers who have their cliques, it's kind of, I've never experienced it because I haven't been in the locker room. But
if you remember last year, the Jets had cliques.
One of the things I hated about Robert Saleh last year, I would have put a stop to it. After Zach Wilson had difficulties and they went to Mike White, players were wearing Mike White T-shirts. That is so insulting to a guy on the team. I would have put a stop to it. I would have told everyone, you take the T-shirt off. I don't want that on. It's insulting to a teammate of yours. I would have put a stop to it. but he allowed those T-shirts to be worn. How are you supposed to feel if you're Zach Wilson?
I'm just laughing because Zach Wilson had said that he was going to make every day in practice hell for Aaron Rodgers.
Well, he didn't say Aaron Rodgers directly, but
what are you talking about, Jack? Zach was wearing that T-shirt too. So he joined the crowd. So you
but
did
in round 6, the Jets drafted a linebacker, Zab Barnes, from Western Michigan. I mean, Western Michigan's not a powerhouse here. Normally my attitude is if you're going to go that late in the draft, take a flyer on a powerhouse team, a Georgia and Alabama, someone who was a starter, because maybe the job they did was underrated there and there's something there.
Yeah, but also, I think if you notice that a lot of teams at the later part of the draft this year were taking flyers on not Power 5 conferences. The first 4 rounds, the Power 5 didn't get the non-Power 5 conferences didn't get a lot of love. But after that, they started taking flyers on them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, you could find someone in a Division II that might be that led the league or something in rush. I remember Giants Jacobs. He played for Division II, I think. In one of his last years, I think he ended up going to a Division I later, but he was a find, and people, the Giants found him. So you can find.
Do you guys know anything about Old Dominion? Because the Jets' last pick in the 7th round, a tight end, Zach Kuntz, no clue. But Old Dominion, maybe they see something there.
I think Old Dominion was a whiskey.
Old Dominion beat some people this year.
Yeah. I think they make good whiskey too, if I'm not mistaken. Old Dominion whiskey. So let's get on to the Giants. Now, of course, I'm going to brag on my Giants because, I'm a Giants homer, and we all know that. I even got expert grades on the picks, guys. So this is how far I went with this. So, of course, they get number 1 cornerback, Deonte Banks. And it was surprised to me that, they were surprised. The experts were surprised that they went cornerback. And he is an unbelievable cornerback, turns out to be. He's from Maryland, and he fits this team. He doesn't fit every team, but he fits the Giants in their scheme. Very aggressive, a hard hitter. And, we got an A for that pick, just to let you guys know. So in round 2, we pick up John Schmitz, our center, which we needed a center really bad. Yeah. He's a big boy. He's big and thick, and of course fills an immediate need. We needed a center. We lost both our centers, and we got an A+ for that. Round 3, a steal. We got wide receiver Jalen Hyatt. Another big play wide receiver that
you traded down for Max.
Yes, we did
up a little bit.
Yeah, we did. But I think it's worth it, Jack. To get a quality receiver. And then in round 5, we get Eric Gray, a running back from Oklahoma. This guy is no joke. He was unbelievable in the bowl game. And, listen, I still believe Saquon was watching this saying, well, maybe I should get in.
I don't think so.
Well, I could say that, Jim.
Let's be serious. Saquon signed tomorrow because they drafted him.
Yeah, he got a little nervous, So,
yeah.
There you go. Okay, so let's finish up the NFC East because that's really what we really care about. Washington got Emmanuel Forbes from Mississippi State, a cornerback, thin and fast, maybe a little too thin. We'll see. Illinois cornerback, they doubled down. They got Jalen Martin, 5'11", 194 pounds. He's very physical, as you can tell. 5'11", 194 is pretty big. Round 3, they pick up Ricky Stromberg, center from Arkansas. So a lot of centers drafted. Round 4, they get Braden Daniels, a tackle from Utah. And at pick 5, they picked up KJ Henry, with their 137 picks in the 5th round. So Washington didn't have a bad. Not really. Many teams had bad drafts.
I would agree.
Except maybe Detroit. Detroit didn't have.
That doesn't excite me. Washington's draft. You know, they were 8-1 last year. Somehow it seems it was worse than that. Chase Young, what's his situation? You know, because he's been injury prone. He was out. They're going to make him prove himself that he could stay healthy the whole year. I mean, he's going to be a force if he is. He's one of the better players around.
Well, they're not picking up his 5th-year option, so that tells you something.
No. You know, he's a risk there to be out a whole year the way he was.
I don't think it hurts Washington to lose him. They got a great defensive line. I mean, he was good his rookie year, but you know, I think that you know, their defensive line.
Landon Collins, who went from the Giants to Washington back to the Giants, does he fit into their plans this year?
I think that's like defensive edge rushers. You could never have enough defensive backs.
I agree.
You know,
but I was saying this about this draft. Did you realize that the emphasis on D linemen and corners on defense, wide receivers and quarterbacks on offense? And you just saw the emphasis. Linebackers were an afterthought for the reality of it, which was interesting. I mean, they were an afterthought. It was more D linemen, offensive linemen, and wide receivers and cornerbacks. But the cornerbacks didn't go as high as people anticipated.
No, they dropped a little bit.
Yeah, they dropped a little bit.
Yep.
They went in like groups. The offensive linemen went in one after the other. The receivers went one after the other initially, it seemed. Yeah.
And the safeties went later.
Yeah.
And that was unusual.
Well, with teams drafting, looking at the whole big picture of all the teams, were they drafting more according to need or best available?
That's a good question.
Best available in the beginning, more need at the end.
Well, best available. No, the quarterbacks, I understand. That's the one position perhaps you draft according to need. If there's a little better play at another position, but a good, competent quarterback, and you need.
But interesting, they said that it was the Brock Purdy effect because Purdy was the last pick last year, and he did so well. Now everybody wants to find that Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
Do you get the feeling? Not knowing any particular names, the group of quarterbacks that were taken later on from the 4th round on, if you had to say yes or no, is one of them going to blossom and be outstanding?
No.
Out of the whole big group, or are they all going to be the same?
I don't, go ahead, Jim. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think this quarterback class is not strong again. I think it's because they're all doing the spread offenses now, and they sit in the shotgun and they just throw the ball to these great wide receivers that are making big catches. I told you I didn't really like C.J. Stroud. I think he's injury prone. I think he's going to get hurt. I mean, I know he's talented, Jim. I know he's talented.
I like Stroud.
I know you do, and I know he's talented, but he's got an injury history, and now he's going up to NFL where he's going to get beat up. He's going to get beat up.
I'm thinking Bryce Young.
Bryce Young. I was
going to say not Stroud.
No, Bryce Young. I'm sorry. I'm talking about Bryce Young.
But here's the thing. I think that Bryce Young, and the reason he went number 1, and you have your opinions, is he was the only quarterback that's NFL ready. By that I mean that he can go into a system and play now. The other quarterbacks, even Stroud, and I like C.J. Stroud, it might take a little time, but I think Bryce Young can walk in and play.
I think Bryce Young can walk in and get hurt. That's what I think.
You know, I think the most intriguing pick, the top 4 is Anthony Richardson going at number 4 to Indianapolis. They said something interesting, Mac, that goes against what you believe in. They don't plan for him to carry a clipboard. They're saying he's going to learn by playing.
Oh, yeah, that's what I
They're
think.
willing to perhaps sacrifice the first year, lose games for him to develop. And they have Minshew they got, who's, competent backup.
That's what I was going to say. I don't think
If you look at Justin Fields wasn't really NFL ready, but they let him play, and he made plays.
They let him play. He was better off for it.
Right.
But I like Justin Fields too. I thought he was. I didn't think he was a great passer, but he might be. And they compare. Maybe Richardson is like Justin Fields.
That's what I was thinking, Jim. And not inside. I'm saying that he can run out of problems. Right?
Yeah,
he can run out.
But I just don't know. And this is what is awareness. That's the big thing with both of them. Is how aware are they going to be when you got guys at 300 pounds that can run in the low 4.5, 4.6. How aware are they going to be? They talk about their athleticism, but those guys can run too now.
Yeah.
This is the fastest. And he played in the SEC. Yeah, he did play in the SEC, but he wasn't very successful in the SEC. And he's seeing a better level of players now.
Anthony Richardson is a big guy who's fearless. He won't be scared to take on the defenders. That's going to get hurt.
I mean, you're getting
in the open field, they're allowed to hit him hard. He doesn't seem the type who's willingly going to go down the way Bryce.
Yes, and I agree with him. But you see Justin Fields, what happened to him?
Yep.
Well, he was sacked 11 times in one game. That's offensive.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And he got banged up. And he's a big guy. And that's all I'm saying is you got to remember these defensive players, even with the rules changed, you imagine getting hit all game by somebody that big. And he's going to get hit. And then you got guys at the linebacker position that can really run and hit you.
All right, guys. Let's do a little game of true and false. Aaron Rodgers takes the Jets to the Super Bowl in his second year.
True.
Jim?
False. Aaron Rodgers will be on Jeopardy in his second year.
Yeah, one of the questions is going to be which Hall of Fame quarterback led the Jets to the Super Bowl?
It could be. True or false? Lamar Jackson, within the next 2 years, finally gets to the Super Bowl.
Go ahead, Jack.
False.
Yeah,
I agree that too. True or false? Baker Mayfield has the same kind of year he did, and the Rams playing with Tampa Bay. True or false?
But Mac, he only had a small body of work with the Rams, so you can't say a year. I mean, I think a fairer thing, will Baker Mayfield be the starting quarterback for the Buccaneers next year?
Okay.
I think that's a fairer question to ask.
Okay, true or false on that, Jay?
True.
True.
Okay. So you made the question so you could answer, right? I see what you did there, Jay.
No, but he didn't have a full body of work. The job he did with the Rams was nice as a plug-in, but it got him an audition to be starting quarterback with the Buccaneers. He revived his career in a sense.
Yes,
and he has to battle Kyle. It's not certain he's going to start for Tampa Bay. He's going to compete with Kyle Trask, but people expect Mayfield to have the job.
True or false? If Dallas does not win a playoff game this year, Dak Prescott and McCarthy are both in trouble.
True.
True, because I think the fan base, there's a fatigue setting in on the Cowboy fan base. Fatigue is the word, not fatigue. To add to it, it's going to force the Joneses to act.
Okay. True or false? Daniel Jones throws for 3,000 yards, runs for 350 yards, and throws 20 touchdowns and runs for 5.
False.
Well, 17 games, and you're talking about 25 touchdowns total. That's not overly impressive if you look on the surface.
Well, I'm trying to get a true answer.
17 games. True. But
there you go. I got a true. Jim says false.
False.
Yeah, I mean, 17 games.
If you would have said Saquon, I would agree with you. I would have said true.
I mean, it's not. It's doable. Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Thank you. True or false? Pittsburgh Steelers win the division next year.
False.
False.
Okay. True or false? Burrows will be the highest quarterback in history when his contract comes up.
True.
False, and I'll tell you why. If he was anywhere but Cincinnati, I would say yes, true. But since Cincinnati, they don't pay people. Brown doesn't pay people, so false.
Wow. What, can you imagine them franchising him? I mean, that's not a good look.
I'm just telling you, when's the last guy that Cincinnati's paid?
Yeah, but he's iconic in Cincinnati.
You can say what you want, but that's the Cincinnati. That's the Bengals way. Let's be honest.
Yeah, but we're maybe in a new era now. I mean,
Okay.
I think they got to pay Burrows. If they don't pay Burrows, they're not losing.
They're going to pay him, but he won't be the highest paid player. And Herbert won't be either. I'm just,
they can't. The Chargers can't afford to lose Herbert.
The guy that's going to be the highest paid player is Mahomes because he's going to do his contract over.
Well, then you're going to talk about KC losing a lot of players if he does that.
Well, but Patrick Mahomes will work something out for the cap. Certain deferred payments. He's that type.
I think there's some way you can take more signing bonus and less salary because that's what Jalen Hurts did.
Yeah.
How you structure it.
True or false? Buffalo window has closed. They will not go to the Super Bowl anytime soon.
True.
I think so.
I mean, it's still open, the window, but it's closing. Last year was their year. That was their year. It didn't happen. Sometimes a team does it the following year. The year before the Rams won the Super Bowl, I picked them to go to the Super Bowl. Now it's 1 year later. They hit this.
No, you picked the Cleveland Browns, Jack.
No. I picked the Rams the year before that when the Rams did not win the Super Bowl.
Right.
Okay. But I didn't want to stick with them for an additional year because I thought the window's probably, gently closing on them, even though they had a shot. But maybe, maybe Buffalo wins it this year. I thought last year was
I don't think so. I don't think so. In fact, true or false, Miami Dolphins are the best team in the AFC East.
That's a tough one.
I'm taking a fifth.
Fifth?
That's a Jets in that division. Come on,
what are you
man.
thinking of fifth for?
I think Miami has great talent, but I don't think Miami's gotten that much better. So I would say false.
I don't think
defense is underrated, though.
I don't think they have to get much better than what they are. All they needed was more year together. That's all I think.
I just think that they self-destruct. At the beginning, everybody was saying, wow, they're a Super Bowl team. And I think they're going to do the same thing. Because remember what I told you about teams? They are right now and looking at Miami and how the things they did last year. And they are studying them and how they can defense them. And it's not going to be as easy with Tyreek Hill and Waddle and some of those guys. They're going to force them to do things to make them uncomfortable. And I think they're going to attack their defense differently this year. That's why you might see more teams running and give them less offensive series because they're so explosive on offense. So I just think that people are going to change their game plans against them because they kind of know what McDonald does.
Right. My last true or false for you guys.
Daniels. Yeah.
McDaniels.
My last true or false. The Dallas Cowboys. Now you get considered the Eagles draft now, Jim. So don't be a homer. The Dallas Cowboys will win the NFC East this year.
Well, nobody's won the NFC East back to back, so I'm gonna say the Dallas Cowboys will win it. True.
Right.
Nobody's won it back to back.
Well, there's a first time for everything, Jim. What do you think?
Since
Jack?
1998, and the last team to do that was the Eagles.
Eagles, right?
No, false. They're not going to beat the Eagles out. I mean, well, are they going to make the playoffs? Listen, in the type of division where they can make the playoffs conceivably, they got to win at least 10 games there. I think the Cowboys will be all right. I mean, we're talking about 11-6 maybe. bad
Wild
about
card,
the
wild
playoffs. Not to win the
Wild card.
beating wild card. Yeah,
Wild card.
Wow.
Them and the Giants,
which is okay. That's what they were last year. So
them and the Giants will both be wild cards again.
no. Well,
Well, you
the
said the
Giants,
Eagles are going to
I'm
win.
not optimistic on the Giants.
You're never optimistic on the Giants, Jack.
You said the Eagles are going to win the East. Then
I think.
Yeah, I think
you don't
comfortably.
think the Giants are going to win the East or Washington?
Not Washington.
Washington is going to have a bad year. The way I look
I don't
at it.
think so. I think they'll
Yeah.
be that because they really. Here's the thing. We talked about defense. Washington took all those Alabama guys. Remember?
They have no quarterback, though.
Huh?
They have no quarterback.
That is not bad. But here's the thing. Washington took all those defensive guys from Alabama and Chase Young from Ohio State, and they were pretty, but still they struggled. I think they'll be better this year because they have a running game and they have a good receiver core. So I think they'll be fine. I think
they got Eric Bieniemy there.
I'm a little nervous about Washington. That quarterback's not bad now.
Oh,
and
he went in the fifth. He went in the fifth round. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of low. I mean,
he played well when he got in there.
You know, I think what Jim's saying is the NFC East might be up for grabs more than it has in the past.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't think it's so. I think it's the
I
Eagles.
still think Jalen Hurts is the best quarterback.
Well, Giants need to, polish up their pass rush a bit.
You saw.
Leonard Williams.
They got Thibodeau. They got Thibodeau.
That's what I mean. Leonard Williams.
Why do you got to start that again, Jim? Why are you starting that?
We got Thibodeau. Who does the Jets have that can compare to Thibodeau?
Williams. I mean, it's miles.
Williams is a tackle. He's not an end.
Yeah, but he can sack the quarterback.
They can't even sign him.
No Ken Dexter Lawrence, Jack. So
Paul Lawson is a better, pass rusher. I mean, I'm just saying, but
listen, the Giants draft was good. They picked up a lot of good offensive players. I think they got a shot. So anyway.
I do too. I think that it is more competitive this year.
Yeah.
I don't know, honestly, other than the Eagles, every team is going to be fighting. I mean, the Eagles have some talent. They got Jalen Hurts and they got A.J. Brown, and that is a difference. But as we all know, is the health over 17 games are going to determine it. The health is going to be the determinant.
Oh, agree. Definitely agree. So we got the NHL playoffs, guys, still going. You got the Hurricanes. The Hurricanes 2, New York Islanders 1. Carolina wins the 4-2.
That was a couple of nights ago, Mac.
That's okay. Jack, we're updated. It's This Week in Sports, Jack.
Yeah, but the other shows.
Jack, we'll get back. We'll get to that. We'll get to it, Jack. Calm down. All right? Okay. The Panthers beat Boston 7-3. The series is tied at 3. The Stars, for the Wild, 1. Dallas wins that series 4-2. The Avalanche ties the series at 4-1. Toronto, they finally get out of the playoff series. They took a puck one off the defenders' skate for them to do it, but they won anyway. Edmonton, they won the series 4-2. The Rangers tie the series at 3. Let's see, who won this one? Over the Kings. Edmonton wins. They're 4-2 over the Kings. And today we got Kraken at
Seattle.
Right. And
at Colorado,
right, Colorado. And we got the New York Rangers at New Jersey. So the Rangers in New Jersey going at it
today. They played last night. The Rangers even the series. 5-2. They're 3 games apiece.
Jack, they're playing today.
They played last night. The Rangers.
I know they did, but I'm saying they're playing today. This is the last game.
Wait a second. Right. Not the day after playing Saturday night. I mean, we're not.
Kraken is playing. Kraken is playing. And
you talk about the Rangers and the Devils, right?
Right. They're playing today.
No, they're not playing today. They played last night, and the Rangers even the series.
You said that, Jack, but they're playing the 7th game today.
They are not playing today. The Panthers are playing the Bruins in the 7th game to decide who advances, and the Kraken are playing the Avalanche today in the 7th game to decide, who advances.
Now you're making me look it up.
No, but Mac, if they're playing on hockey isn't back-to-back. Playoffs aren't back-to-back games anymore. That's like a past era.
Since we're talking about this, I got a question for you. We all know that the Boston Bruins had the best record, obviously, in the NHL. But they're
in history, Jim. That's
in history. But they're tied with the Panthers. And Pax had asked this question. And they're 3-3. This is the deciding game. If Boston loses this game, was it that they had the best record ever in NHL history, and now they're done? Is that a disappointing season like Giannis?
Oh, and they would have blown a 3-1 lead to Florida, who's a very good team.
Yes.
And what does that say about legacy? I mean, it's so important, to finish the job and win the championship. I mean, imagine the New England Patriots had beaten the Giants in the Super Bowl, guys, and they were 19-0. What would we be saying about that team? That team would be considered the greatest team of all time, hands down. Belichick, Brady, they played a couple of extra games in the regular season, but they lost in, what do we say about them now? I mean, it's just these games. Even my Jets, the one Super Bowl they lost to it. The one Super Bowl they won, I'm sorry. They beat a team that was better than them. The Colts were actually a better team. Okay, but no one talks about that. But I'll admit it, the Colts were a better team. They just made a lot of mistakes that day. The Jets played a great game, especially on the
it didn't hurt that Johnny Unitas didn't start that game either. So he was hurt. So that didn't hurt.
He was hurt. Yeah, he was hurt too. Who knows what would have played out had Unitas, been in. And but the 4 turnovers were, one of them was Unitas's, but he had no arm strength at that point, and that's what we basically remember. I mean, one of those Buffalo Bill teams, had they beaten the Giants that first game and then lost the next 3 Super Bowls, would we have looked at them as one of the all-time great teams that won 4 years in a row, who won one? If they got the first one, the next 3 losses wouldn't have looked as bad.
You know what? You make a good point, Jack, but here's the thing. There are great teams and great players. The Minnesota Vikings had great players, obviously. Fran Tarkenton, after the Giants, Alan Page, Marshall. I mean, they had great players, but they lost those Super Bowls. So that's the question you asked them. Were they a great team? They were a great team up to the Super Bowl. Same with the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills, I'm going to tell you, I always tell people this. They had better overall players than the Cowboys, but the Cowboys were different. When we played them, we were different. We were a better team, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You have great players, but you don't have those teams. And that's what happened to the Buffalo Bills. They had great players.
You guys could explain You guys could explain this better than I can. Even though it's a bunch of individuals make up a team, there's a certain heart of a team.
Yes.
And I don't like to say this about the Buffalo Bills because those players I respect the heck out of individually, but they gave up in that second game they lost to the Cowboys that you were part of in the Super Bowl, leading at halftime. As soon as Thurman Thomas fumbled the ball, all the ghosts came out. Oh, here we go again. We're jinxed. It's as if they felt they were going to lose and the game was still tied.
Well, Mac will tell you this, is that winning is a habit, but also losing is a habit. My guts would hurt. When we were 1-15, my stomach would hurt after games. We were winning some of those games, but you worry about, oh, shoot, what's going to happen? But as you win, your confidence changes, and you believe you're going to win.
Yeah.
And that's just easier. I believe we're going to get this game done. It's just like in the second Super Bowl you were talking about that we played, we were losing at halftime.
13-6.
We were so panicked about going in that locker room and hearing what Jimmy had to say. He didn't say a word until the end. He just said, okay, let's go win this game. And that's all he said.
You know, that's similar to what Parcells did even when they were losing to Denver. It's just, you know what you got to do, just do it.
Yeah, because you already got enough stress on you, and you can't just keep doing that. And that's the thing, is with especially you would think, like you said, that they would think, oh, we can find a way to win. But unless you're trained to do that, then it's hard.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's vibes. Everything is going wrong and you're just slightly behind, and you know it's going to turn around, so you could be calm about it. And conversely, a team is completely outplaying another team, but they're barely ahead of them at halftime or whatever. That's not a good sign.
No, it isn't.
But sometimes you don't know. Even in the Super Bowl, I didn't think the Chiefs could come back. The Eagles clearly seem like the superior team at the half.
But that goes back to what Jim says, right? The Chiefs were there. They know how to win the Super Bowl. It's the Eagles. Jalen Hurts' first time in the Super Bowl. You know, he fumbles the ball, which is uncharacteristic. The defense kind of falls down and doesn't stop Mahomes on that run. I mean, there's certain plays that, you know, that they make. It's like Brady. Brady made plays when plays needed to be made. I mean, when they came back and beat the Falcons, I mean, nobody gave him a chance, but you know that Brady and the Patriots said, we can beat this team. We just got to play them in the second half.
Yeah, and you got to remember you got to remember who you're playing against. And you can say what you want, but Mahomes is a different kind of guy.
Yeah.
He believes that he can. Joe Burrows is that kind of guy. Herbert has to become that kind of guy for the Chargers to be successful. But Mahomes and Burrow, shoot, you know they're going to find a way. They're just like I always said. They asked me about LeBron and Michael Jordan. It should be Michael Jordan and Kobe, and the reason is because those guys are trained killers. They're going for your heart. And I'm just telling you, that's how they play. LeBron is just a tremendous athlete, and he deserves everything he gets. But Kobe and Michael, shoot, if they need to score 70 points, they're going to score 70 points. And that's how Burrows and Mahomes are.
Yeah.
But I think in any sport, and you take the Super Bowl with the Eagles, you need one player to step up on defense.
I would agree.
One guy has to have that powerful personality where he steps up, and the other guys then know they better follow his lead and they better step up as well. I think that's why a guy like Ray Lewis was such a great leader. There were guys who you could argue were maybe as good as Ray Lewis or close to it, but not the type of leader who could stir things up with the team whose lead they'd have to follow.
Well, you know, Pags pointed this out, and he was right. I mean, you know, they play on that field that was icy, and they couldn't get pressure. I mean, there's so many things that you can point to why you lose, but there's only one way to win, and I don't care what the conditions are. If you're a winner, you're going to win that ball game. And
yeah, because Kansas City played on the same field, right?
Bottom line, Jim.
Yeah.
Bottom line, and you know that. Jack, we do got some boxing news out here. And
oh, yeah.
I know Jim's going to be happy about this, but we got let's see. We've got Shakur Stevenson.
Yeah.
He's calling out Davis. Jack, is that going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, listen, everyone could call out everyone else. It's a big joke. You know, they call him out. Shakur Stevenson fights for Top Rank. Gervonta Davis fights for the PBC / Mayweather. He's with them. Tank Davis has bigger issues. No one is still talking about it. He's going to face a judge soon.
Yeah,
there's going to be sentencing.
And I had a question for you too. With Garcia and Davis, there's a possibility. Yeah. But did you know that was the highest watch pay-per-view fight, Davis and Garcia, and it's still getting looks at the replays. I thought that was interesting. So does that open up for Crawford?
No, one has nothing to do with the other. I think
it's money.
I know. I think Crawford and Spence might finally happen. It's 50-50 for late on in July.
Yeah,
because
but
both guys have nowhere to go.
They lose all this money by waiting. A lot of money.
The fights lost a little bit of shine, but it could make big money. The problem is in July, pay-per-view events don't tend to do quite as well in the summertime. You got to kind of like time it out, like when you're going to have it. It can't go opposite another massive sporting event. Something about the summertime, people on as attuned to getting these events. I don't know why they're not as like indoors.
But there's other options. That's what the problem is.
Yeah. But Crawford and Spence,
you can go outside. Nobody wants to be stuck by looking at TV on a beautiful day.
Yeah. It all depends on how stubborn an athlete is. I like to compare fighters in boxing to athletes in other sports. If I had to say who Terrence Crawford was, I'd say he's Lamar Jackson. The way Lamar Jackson was holding out for his deal, Terrence Crawford is holding out for his deal. It's not necessarily 50-50, but he wants to know he's getting this and that. And what happens in boxing, they work out the parameters of a deal. You think they're so close to a deal. And then Terrence Crawford's saying, well, you have to do this and that. You have to have a rematch clause, but for the rematch clause, your pay-per-view percentage is going to be the same as if you beat him in the first fight. And he might say, well, I want to get rewarded. If I win the first fight and I'm fighting him again, I want to know now I'm getting this and that. They tweak it like so many ways. But Spence and Crawford, really, they have nowhere to go now.
Yeah.
I mean, Spence might move up to junior middleweight, but who's he going to fight? The champion's Jamel Charlo, his friend and his stablemate, who he's not going to fight. So if Charlo loses to the Australian Tim Tszyu, then of course Spence would move up and take that fight.
Yeah. What is the most attractive fight right now? Is it Spence and Crawford?
I think it's the heavyweights. I would say Usyk and Fury. But here in the United States, it's a hardcore fence. Yes, Spence and Crawford's the best fight. It's very intriguing.
Because I think what's happening is the longer you wait, because there's so many sports, we're getting inundated with so many sports. Like you said, it loses its luster. And people are not going to pay that money.
You asked me the best fight that could be made. Devin Haney, I think, beats Lomachenko. I'd love to see him fight Tank Davis. Now, that's not going to happen because Devin Haney's being promoted by Top Rank, who promotes Shakur Stevenson. That might actually happen. You know who's going to push for that to happen? Very hard, Bob Arum. You want to know why? Because Bob Arum is close to 92 years old. He wants to see the fight. You're letting it kind of all ride. Like at a certain point.
Yeah, Wilder and Joshua, December 22nd.
Yeah, that's probably going to come off. That's probably coming off. Let me ask you guys this, pay-per-view. December 22nd, right before Christmas. Are people going to lay out big pay-per-view dollars right before Christmas? With all their Christmas shopping with this and that? Are they going to think, nah, I'm going to save the money to get a gift? Because supposedly they're talking about a doubleheader, Fury and Usyk, headlining, and Joshua and Wilder doubleheader. That means pay-per-view is going to be like $119.99, so $129.99. And a pay-per-view show's never been more than $99.99. Do you know what I did? I think I mentioned this before. When Mayweather fought Pacquiao, the price was $99.99. I wrote a story how the money could be better spent. It was published. I went to the flea market with $99.99 in my pocket, and I shopped. And then I published pictures, all the items I had. I got a pair of fake Air Jordans for $15. I got a pair of pants. I got a $2 blazer, believe it or not. It didn't quite fit perfectly. And I'm pictures with all these clothes. I got, pair of underwear, There's my wife one with me.
The show is going in a different direction.
$99.90. No. But the point is, I showed what you could get for the money.
Oh my goodness!
And it,
You didn't even know about your underwear, Jack.
That's right. The guy didn't want the vendors. He didn't want to take a picture with me with that. I don't blame him. I mean, I got a cheap watch, a cheap belt, the whole thing. But
Jack, some upcoming fights. I want to get your reaction to here. We have Canelo versus Ryder.
Yeah. It's amazing that fight is next week and no interest on it next weekend. I mean, normally a Canelo fight has a lot of interest. John Ryder's an Englishman. I mean, a decent fight, not a serious threat to Canelo at all, unless Canelo has slipped greatly. I mean, this is Canelo kind of cherry picking his spots. And I think he's going to do that basically the rest of his career. He says after this fight, he wants to fight a rematch with Dmitry Bivol at 175 pounds for the title, which would be very admirable if he did that for a rematch. But you better believe he's going to make the Bivol lose pounds and come down in weight.
Yeah, like a catch weight kind of thing.
Yeah, and they're going to call it for the light heavyweight title. And think of how ludicrous that is. You have different weight divisions for a reason. And they're going to change the 175-pound limit, and it might go down to 170, and they might still call it for the title. That's like having a football game, making it 3 quarters and calling it legitimate, because the team feels they, could play better over a shorter period of time.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's like having a football game and having a rugby scrum. Oh, they already do that.
Yeah, they do. And I got a way to stop that, Jim. I'm going to tell you about that one of these shows.
Okay.
How you stop that quarterback sneak. It all has to do with pressure from the side, but we'll do that later.
I still can't get over the pile how the referees take forever. The ball is changing hands. If you can't make a call immediately, the team that had possession before should have it. The ref should have a clock like home plate umpires with the pile. If you can't make a decision in 10 seconds, who's got the darn ball? It makes no sense to me.
All right. The other fight the same day, Jack, is I can't pronounce the name, so bear with me. Kurbanov.
I forget those names, Mac. One's a Russian junior middleweight. No one's familiar with.
Nobody knows this guy.
That's how worth it. I don't
okay, so
Stata's like an undrafted draft choice, out of a small school. I don't got a book on him.
That's why I ask you, Jack.
The other guy's been around a while. Wasn't even a medalist in the world championships, from what I know.
That's why I asked, Jack, because they put these out there like this is going to be a big
fight. I mean,
I asked Jack. So anyway, folks, thanks for joining us here on This Week in Sports. Always fun, always informative. Thanks to all our guests. A reminder, Monday night, Jack and Frank get it on at Glove Fist. Get your ringside seat as these two debate everything. You think me and Jack debate a lot. These two take the cake, as Frank is always trying to yell Jack, and Jack just keeps talking and talking and talking, as he always does. Jim Jeffcoat and Byron Williams on J&B Talking Shop. I guess they're going to cover the draft. What else is there to talk about? Yes, the draft.
And NBA basketball.
NBA too. And, so they know a lot about 2 sports. They know about baseball too. I mean, they'll talk about baseball a little bit. So, and me and Jack will be back Thursday, bigger and better and less talkative than ever. Hopefully, on Jack's account anyway. So, glad you joined us, guys. Have a great Sunday, and don't do anything Jim wouldn't do. See you again.